Okay. Can you tell us your name and where you were born?
My name's Derick Porter. I was born 20th of March 1934 and I live at Stoops Lane, BECTA.
Caster Derick?
Yes, I was born in St James Street.
Yeah. Can you tell us what your first job was on the railway?
My first job, well, I applied to work at the plant works and they said they'd send for me in 6 weeks' time. I waited 6 months and they never sent for me. My brother worked down at the car wagon shops down Car Hill and he said, I think I can get you a job. And I started there in July 1949 at the old car wagon shops.
What did you do there?
I was an apprentice fitter. My first job was working the steam hammers, which was a fascinating job. The steam hammer is now on Car Hill at the works that do the, well, I think they do tractors. I used to do tractors. And then I progressed through the fitting jobs, all through fitting, until I was a fully fledged fitter, apart from going in the army. And then I came back to the car wagon shops.
And then what's your first recollection of going to the plant works?
The first recollection was we were told, asked to go to the office, and I was doing temporary supervisor, and they said the whole of the works is being transferred up to the plant works in the old carriage shop. So they said, we want you and Ray Danes to go up to the works and suss out where everything got where, and we went round there, which was a completely empty works, and sussed a lot of the places out where stuff would go, you know.
So then they transferred the wagon works?
So then they transferred the complete wagon works up to the plant works in 1965.
Yeah, and what else was at the plant works then?
In 1965 there was still a lot of, well, not a lot of steam about, but there was quite a bit of steam. It was just getting towards the end, and we used to go up onto the scrap and see them scrapping the locos. A lot of famous locos there, which were scrapped. And
when they scrapped them, what did they do to them?
They scrapped them, first of all they stripped the nameplates off, and these were all put in a shed, and it was like Aladdin's cave. I think there was about 130, 150 nameplates, and if you wanted to purchase one you could go into this shed and ask to purchase one, and they cost around about 10 to 14 pounds. Some were a bit cheaper at 7 pounds. These were the smaller nameplates, and then all the works plates off the locos, they used to store all those in the works stores yard, and you could go and pick those up for about 7 and 6pence.
Were they collector's items even in those days?
They were collector's items, but no one ever realised that how much a nameplate would be worth. In 1962, Great Northern, the A1 locomotive, was being scrapped, and I applied to purchase the nameplate, and the works manager eventually had me in the office, and he said, the nameplate is for sale and you can have first offer if you can sort of guarantee me that it stays in Doncaster, which was quite right. It was a famous loco, and I duly was told to go and pick the nameplate up along with a friend of mine, Roy Huggins, at the goods shed near the station, and we had to get a barrow because it weighed 100 weight and a half, solid brass. We took this nameplate to the YMCA, and then I took it home. The cost of the nameplate was £14. Recently I have a chap writes from America, and his offer was about £52,000. But I did purchase a lot of steam locomotive number plates and works plates and that over the years, and we used to have these in the YMCA where we used to run a railway society.
And some of them are now in the museum?
Yes, Great Northern's nameplates nameplate is now being transferred from the YMCA to the museum, yes.
So it will stay in Doncaster?
Hopefully, yes. I've had a word with the YMCA and they have no intentions of getting rid of it because it's such a famous plate.
So going back to the plant works, was there a carriage building shop there?
Yes, there was a carriage building shop. Well, we actually moved into the main carriage shop, the one where the fire was. That's where they used to build all the post office vans and all the famous coaches for the Flying Scotsman train. Yes.
These were lovely wooden coaches.
These were the wooden teak coaches, yes. Yes.
I've spoken to a carriage builder.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there was an upholstery shop?
There was a upholstery shop, yes. It was marvellous watching them using the old horsehair and that seating then, it never used to sink like today's modern stuff. They used to use the horsehair and it never ever sank in like they do today.
That's right, yes.
Yes.
And then the Boilermaker's shop?
There was a Boilermaker's shop. The Boilermaker's shop, yes. That was fascinating, watching the boilers. The noise was unbelievable, but it was fascinating in there, yes.
And was there a foundry?
There was a foundry. The foundry used to produce many of the locomotive springs and springs for the wagons in the foundry, and they also used to use, no parts were hardly purchasing in them days. Everything was made on Doncaster Plant Works. The bolts, rivets, castings, everything was made on the plant works.
Yes, that's right, yes. And then there was the Smith shop?
The Smith shop, yes. They again were involved with the springs as well. They fitted the springs together and tested them in there.
And a wheel shop, was there?
Yes, there was a wheel shop. The wheel shop, that was fascinating, watching them in the wheel shop, especially when they were shrinking the locomotive tyre onto the wheel itself. They heated them up and then cooled it down, and it shrunk the tyre onto the wheel, which was quite fascinating to watch.
To watch them do that,
yes.
Yeah. Of course, for pupils, that would they'd recollect expansion and contraction.
Yes,
wouldn't
that's
they?
right. Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah. And then there'd be the paint shop.
Yes, the paint shop was sort of my favourite shop because you see, you always saw the finished product come out of there. I mean, even as a schoolboy, I can remember the paint shop because you used to go down Kirk Street and turn right, and there was the fence along the side of the paint shop, and we'd purposely thrown a brick through one of the windows so you could climb up a lamppost and look in the window, and you could see sort of what was in there. And usually, if you saw a railwayman in the yard, you just shouted him and he'd come over and you could say, "Oh, can you tell us what's in?" And he'd sometimes go in and have a look and come out and tell you what was in there, which was very good, really, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it was a famous paint shop, the paint shop was.
It was, wasn't
Yes.
it? Yes, because all the colours of the trains were designated, like the green of the NER and so on.
Yeah, the Flying Scotsman green, the Garter blue for some of the A4s, and then eventually the British Railway green. Yes.
And these paint men could actually do a stripe without...
Oh yes, they were very good painting the stripes. In fact, when the Flying Scotsman came in for the 150th anniversary, I took quite a lot of pictures of them doing that, even modern times, and it's a terrific sight to watch.
Yes, we've got a picture here, haven't we, of some men painting one of the trains. We can just find that one.
Yes, that photograph is a photograph of Mallard when it was being refurbished. It has got the paint in the wheels. I'm not sure what colour the red was. It wasn't a true colour to what it was in the old days.
Was that, what year would that be?
That was, it was in the 80s, I believe.
Yeah.
And that was another picture of them one lot are painting the wheels and the others are painting the body side of the locomotive.
Any other famous trains that you've seen at the plant works?
Mallard, of course.
That picture was taken at the...
That was taken at the 150th anniversary of the Doncaster Plant Works.
That's right.
Then you've got Union in South Africa, which appeared for the 150th anniversary at the Plant Works.
And all these trains were actually built, weren't they?
Yes, they were all built at Doncaster. You've got the Henry Oakley, the Atlantic locomotive, Henry Oakley 990, and then you've got 251, which is in the museum. Then you've got Sir Nigel Gresley, another famous loco, which is preserved and has just been done up on the North Yorkshire moors.
Who was that named after, Derick?
That was named after the designer of the A4 locomotives.
Sometimes called the Pacifics.
The Pacifics, yeah. The first Pacific, of course, was Great Northern.
Yes. Did you sense, when you worked there, Derick, that there was a pride of the men in the finished engines that came out of the plant works?
There was more of a pride in the old days than what there is today, I must confess. To go in and see the men working, they had pride in what the finished product was, and same with the painting, there was a pride in the painting. And I'm not biased, but I think Doncaster Paint Shop turned out some of the finest locomotives painted and coaches anywhere else in England. I used to go visiting all the other depots and works, and without being biased, Doncaster was the best.
Yes, good. And when the steam engines finished, the era of the steam engines,
yes.
How did Doncaster Plant Works continue then?
Doncaster then, when the steam locomotives finished, the Deltics took over on the main line. The Deltic locos took over all the duties of the Pacifics on the main line, and eventually Doncaster got the order for repairing the Deltics. I photographed all the Deltics that came into works. I photographed them all through, and I also photographed them as everyone came in for scrapping. I photographed everyone in for scrapping. And then, of course, we got all the other builds of locos, the Class 56s and the Class 58s, which, when you think they only lasted about 10-15 years, is sad when you look how long a Pacific locomotive lasted.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. So the plant works did the maintenance of these engines.
The plant works did the maintenance, yes. Yes.
So did people's jobs change because of the changing? Did they have to retrain?
Oh yes, they had to retrain because same as when I worked at the old wagon works. There, the fitting department and the wagon building department were completely two separate entities, and they hated each other's guts. But eventually they all came together under British Airways and worked under British Airways, and that was better, because there was no this is your job, this is my job. All that ceased, and it was for better. Things was produced a lot better, a lot easier, without any aggro.
Now, I live in Hexthorpe and I've seen the Crimpsall works being demolished. What happened in those sheds, the Crimpsall end?
The Crimpsall end was where most of the locomotives were built and repaired.
These overhead cranes that they had?
Yes, it was sad really, because they're two of the finest overhead cranes in the country, and when I think of the old days when you used to go in the shops and see the steam locomotives being lifted and moved down the shop, And then when they pulled the works down, I asked the people who were involved in the pulling down, why don't they save the cranes and let private railways have them? And they said, no, it's too costly to strip them down, which to me was very sad. I mean, when you look at the crimsel shops now, well, a friend of mine, he won't go because he said I would cry my eyes out if I saw the plant works as it is now.
Yes. How many men would be employed at the plant works in its heyday?
In its heyday, I think there was about 4,700 in its heyday. And then it slowly worked down in the late 60s, 70s, down to about 2,000, I believe.
One man told me that when the buzzer went at the end of the working day, it was like an ant's nest coming out. Oh,
it was fascinating to be stood in Kirk Street and watch all the men coming over. But I also find it most fascinating on the bridge over to the station, because it was just like a load of ants coming over the bridge. Yeah,
and if you were going in the opposite direction,
you had no chance. You just got carried by because they didn't care. Once they were going home, that was it.
That's right.
Yeah.
A lot of people in Hexthorpe miss the familiar buzzer as well, you see.
Oh yes.
The works buzzer.
Yeah, I mean, it always used to remind you of the war, the siren, which was on the new erecting shop, of course. They were hoping, I was talking to one of the managing directors, and he was hoping to get that siren. They found the old siren and was trying to get it fitted on top of E2 shop, where it used to be, yeah.
Yes. Now what we see from the station, the whole kind of length of the opposite the platform, the station platform, what part of the plant works is that?
That used to be, the whole length of that, in the old days, in the First World War period and afterward, used to be the main machine shop. That's where everything used to be manufactured in those. I've got a load of pictures of the old workers in there with the old foreman who always used to wear a bowler hat. And it was ladies and gentlemen working, and they used to machine practically everything for the locomotives, the bearings, bolts, nuts, practically everything in there. Yes.
So that was quite skilled work then. Was there an apprenticeship scheme in the plant work?
There was an apprenticeship scheme in the old days, yes. Which used to be a heck of a job to get in. You used to have to know someone before you could get in to be an apprentice, and then of course they had what they call the premium apprentice, which was if they thought you'd probably get a better job, I suppose.
Yes. Yeah. And they had a training school, I believe, didn't they?
Yes, the training school, which was very good. That functioned for quite a long, until the end of the plant works, really. It was a very good training school, and I remember the thing I can remember most about the training school was a visit of the Queen, when she came in there and they presented her with a model of the rocket, a brass model what the apprentice had made, and that's the thing that always stands out in my mind in the apprentice training school. But it was a very good training school, yes.
People said that if you'd had an apprenticeship at the plant, it was second to none. You could go anywhere in the country.
Yes, it was.
And they would accept you.
Yes, it was. Yeah.
So then they went on to, after the Deltics, they went on to electrics.
They built the electrics, they built the Class 86 electrics there, and they also did they did some locomotives for the Irish Railways in there, and then they built the Class 56s, they built the Class 58s, and some of those, a lot of the Class 58s have gone abroad. The Class 56s, a lot of those have been purchased privately. Fast Lane, which is at Hexthorpe, funny enough, they're running Class 56s at the moment. Yeah.
So when did the plant work start to be divided up into Guardia and Wabtec and so on?
Yeah, that was in about the 60s, late 60s, 70s, when they went over to British Railways, and then in the 80s, late 80s, I finished at the works in 87, and that's when there was a management buyout, and it became RFS Engineering, and then it's now become WebTech, which is an American firm. But under RFS Engineering, there was a mass redundancies, and I wasn't sure what to do. And although it broke my heart to leave, I didn't sort of like the setup, and so I decided to leave. I've kept my interest up in railways from there, but it was a sad day.
Yes. And tell us about organising the open days, because that's been a highlight of your career, hasn't it?
Yes, I used to. When I moved up to the plant works, Eric Marshall, who was the engineer in the plant works, he got myself and Roy Platts involved in the guide duties, which was very rewarding to get all the parties and they'd get all the parties round the plant works, and to see the expressions on people's faces when they were looking round the steam locos, and the sort of sad faces when they went onto the scrap lane was good. And then they finished, well, they didn't really finish, they did their duties occasionally, but then they started having works open days, of which I was involved in with Roy Platts and Eric Marshall and one or two more, and that was most rewarding. To have the open days and to see the amount of people there was unbelievable. The one that always comes to my mind was the Deltic one in 1982. We'd been, all the Deltics were brought in for scrap and was dumped on the riverbank, and there was a lot of problems with the enthusiasts coming over the fence and stealing stuff. And the works manager wasn't sure what to do, and we suggested that they put all the locos in one long line, which they put in one long line, and that eased a lot because the security men could then walk on, look up the line of locos and see if there was anybody about. Anyway, everybody had been asking for an open day, and we approached the works manager, and he didn't really like the idea. He said, I don't want it an high-key thing. Well, little did he know what we knew of how many enthusiasts. We estimated there would be 8,000 to 10,000 there at least. So he said, well, this was in, let me think, November, December. He said, yes, you can organise one, but it's got to be in February. Now that doesn't give you time to catch the magazines to tell people, but we had ways and means of getting the word round, and I think we eventually got about 11,000 people over that weekend. I know my good lady always says, I remember coming round the station and just seeing a long line snaking right round the station, right up past St James's Church and right up Exthorpe Bridge. She said it was unbelievable. Yeah.
And then the other occasion was when the Blue Peter engine.
Oh, when Blue Peter, that was unbelievable. I don't think anybody ever thought how many people would be there. And I went to the Blue Peter ceremony, and I just couldn't believe it. I think the estimation was about 70,000, and they were expecting about 6,000 or 7,000. I've never seen so many people. To see young people stood on top of locos. I mean, when you look at health and safety today, and you saw what happened then, well, health and safety they'd have heart attack. Yeah, but it was good. It was very, very good indeed.
Now, the Blue Peter wasn't actually built in Doncaster, was it?
No, it wasn't built at Doncaster, but
it was refurbished.
It was refurbished, yes.
And it was renamed, wasn't it?
Well, it had its name rededicated. Yeah.
Because Valerie Singleton was there, wasn't she?
Yeah, they were there. I took a few pictures of it being refurbished, and then they had the open day, and then they were very nice people. In fact, for quite a while afterwards, if there was any queries about the plant works, any locomotives, they used to phone me up and want information, and I've got quite a few letters from them and pictures. And
now, if anybody wanted to know any more about the plant works, Derick, could you just show these books and some of your...
Yeah,
just show them to the camera.
There's quite a few good books on the market. There's Doncaster Plant Works, which is by Peter Tuffrey. That's a very good book. There's a part 1 and a part 2. A lot of the pictures are the same, but there is a big variation because it does go, one's from GNER days and the other's up to the 80s. So that is a very good one. A lot of good pictures in there. If anybody wants to read about the mallard, that's a very good book which gives the history of the mallard, and that is very good. And also another book which I was involved with is the Doncaster Town Train Makers 1853-1990, which again is another very good book.
And that even covers the period of World War I, World War II, doesn't it?
That covers
how the plant works was used in the war.
Yes, that is a very detailed book. It gives all the history. It gives you all the works managers from Stirling, Sturrock, Stirling, Nigel Gresley, Edward Thompson, Peppercorn, all the works managers who were involved, and it's a very good book. And I also produced a book, but not on Doncaster Plant Works. That was on Doncaster and its locomotive, really.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you've got loads of photographs, haven't you? That's been your hobby, I think, hasn't it?
Yes, it's been my hobby. I think my collection, which is a sore point at the moment, which is about 44,000 black and white negatives, 23,000 slides. The last count was over 1.5 million photographs. I've got 2,500 books, a lot of them on Doncaster, and I've also got about 500 videos. And I don't know how many CDs.
I don't think we can finish, we've got 2 minutes, I don't think we can finish without showing the picture of the Flying Scotsman, which was built in Doncaster and came back for... Tell us about that.
Well, that was the Flying Scotsman. That was the Diamond Jubilee of the Flying Scotsman, which I was involved in 1983, and then I was involved again in the Flying Scotsman when it was refurbished at Doncaster at WABTEC in 2003, and it was turned out superb. How it'll finish up after it's finished at the museum, I have no idea. We was hoping it would come to Doncaster to be painted, but I'm not sure about that now.
Well, thank you very much indeed for coming and showing us the pictures and telling us a bit about the plant works, and I hope that the pupils will really have learnt something from what you've told them.
Oh, I hope so, because it is a fascinating history, Doncaster Plant Works is. It's sad, so sad, that when you think it's one of the most famous works in the country, and yet every other town, Crewe, Eastleigh, Darlington have all got museums, and yet Doncaster has got nothing.
Well, I think that's something we could work towards. Some recognition of the plant works, some museum of it. I really do. Yeah.
I really think we ought to do, because we were involved in trying to get a loco many years ago, and we was offered Green Arrow, and we were offered it till we put in front of the museum. We was knocked back by one of the councillors, who believe it, Councillor Gamage, who was a plant works worker, which is quite fascinating. We did ought to have more than what we've got. We've got a museum, all right, it's just a glass case and a few wooden ends. And there's a few articles at Cusworth Hall,
Yeah.
but nothing.
No. Nothing to reflect.
Nothing to reflect on. Mayor Winters said we've got a good collection. I would suggest that Mayor Winters goes to the museum and Cusworth Hall and then has a rethink.
Yes, yes.
Because we should have more.
We should.
A lot more.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Thank you.